Get seated. Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Worship. Worship, I confirm that I appear on behalf of Mr. Gama, who is cited in these proceedings as accused number 4. We have similarly prepared an affidavit in support of the bail application with 2 annexes. My learned friend for the state has had sight of it. He is in fact in possession of a copy. I wish to hand up the original signed and commissioned version, Your Worship. Might I then proceed to read it into the record?
You may do so.
Thank you. Affidavit in support of bail in terms of the provisions of Section 60, subsection 11, subparagraph B of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977, defined as the CPA. I, the undersigned Siyabonga Innocent Gama, do hereby make oath and state as follows, paragraphs 1.1. I'm an adult male in the applicant herein. I'm a South African citizen born in Dundee, the then province of Natal. I next hereto marked A copy of my identity document, para 1.2. I reside at 123B Eccleston Crescent, Bryanston, Gauteng. My family trust owns the shares in the company that owns the family home. I have resided in this property for the last 4 years. It has a market value of approximately 27 million rand and is unencumbered. During the afternoon of 26 May 2022, I was at the family home when members of the SAPS attended thereat to confirm that I was indeed the occupant of the property. I understand this to have been a verification process by the investigating team in this matter. Paragraph 2. The facts herein contained fall within my personal knowledge, save where otherwise stated, and are to the best of my belief both true and correct. 3. I've been informed that I will be formally charged with the offence of fraud, albeit that the specifics of what I will be charged with have not been provided to me. Paragraph 4. As will become apparent from what is set out herein below, I have not been presented with a formal charge sheet which contains the full particularity of the allegations levelled against me, and neither have I had access to documentation and or information upon which the state premises its allegations against me. 5. In this affidavit, I deal with my personal circumstances and the allegations levelled against me, open brackets, insofar as they are known to me, close brackets, and the fact is to be considered by the Honourable Court as contained in Section 60, subsection 4 to subsection 9 of the CPA. 6. I'm advised that 6.1, present alleged crime is an offence which falls to be listed in Schedule 5 of the CPA. 6.2, in terms of the provisions of Section 6011B of the CPA, I'm required, having been given a reasonable opportunity to do so, to adduce evidence which on a balance of probability satisfies the above Honourable Court that the interests of justice permit my release from custody, and 6.3, that I bear the burden of proof and that I am obliged to initiate this application. I, however, reserve my right to respond to any evidence and or allegations placed on record by the state during this application. Paragraph 7, under the heading Personal Circumstances. 7.1. I am 55 years of age. 2. I am a divorcee and have 11 children born from 2 unions. Of the 11 children, 6 are minors for whom I provide maintenance and support. One of the children, who has attained the age of majority, is a full-time student and I provide ongoing maintenance to her. 7.3. Most of my family members are resident in the Republic of South Africa. However, my one sister, together with more distant relatives, reside in the Kingdom of Eswatini. 7.4. I am a minority shareholder in a corporate structure which intends to acquire immovable property in the Kingdom of Eswatini. However, the acquisition aforementioned has not come to fruition. Paragraph 8, under the heading Income, Occupation and Assets. 8.1. I presently do not earn a fixed income. However, I periodically make drawings from the investment structure referred to in paragraph 8.2 hereunder, as and when required. I am presently involved in arbitration proceedings with my previous employer in which I believe I will be successful and from which I stand to gain a significant monetary award. 2. I am involved in various business enterprises from which I earn an income, which enterprises range from property holding companies to investments on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. 3. Immovable and movable property. I own the following immovable properties: Unit 503 Marine Port, 27 Time Ball Boulevard, Point Waterfront, Durban, with a market value of approximately 2.2 million rand. There was a bond registered in favour of Standard Bank over this property in the amount of approximately 1 million rand. And Unit 204 Legend and Golf Safari Resort in Tabeni, Limpopo, which is a market value of approximately 10 million rand. This property is unencumbered. 8.4. I own movable assets including furniture, household effects and jewellery valued at approximately 8 million rand. I'm a registered taxpayer and annex here to Mark B, a copy of a breakdown of my assets and liabilities prepared by my auditor and submitted to SARS in 2020. There have been no significant changes to the assets listed in Annexure B. 9. I am able to post bail in the amount of 50,000 rand and will submit myself to any reasonable conditions underlying my release on bail imposed by this Honourable Court. 10. The alleged offence, 10.1. As stated here and above, the details of the charges which have been proffered against me have not been disclosed to me in the form of a charge sheet. Neither have I or my legal representatives been permitted access to the South African Police case docket, so as to enable me or my legal representatives to deal meaningfully with the charges proffered against me. The investigating officer in this matter, one Lieutenant Colonel Kutsia, informed my counsel that the present charge proffered against me relates to what has become known as the Club Loan Facility, and it's defined as the Club Loan Facility. I was a senior executive in the employ of Transnet SOC Limited, defined as Transnet, when the Club Loan Facility was concluded. In brief, the Club Loan had as its purpose to finance the acquisition of locomotives and various infrastructure within Transnet. It is, however, not the purpose of this affidavit to broadly deal with my role in the Club Loan, save to state that I deny in the strongest terms any wrongdoing in relation thereto. 10.2. In brief, the Club Loan is one of the themes which served before the Zondo Commission dealt with at length. I complied with the State Capture Commission's investigation throughout the aforementioned process. It was clear to me that the evidence leaders of the Commission intended to prove that I was complicit in wrongdoing in the Club Loan process. Despite my knowledge and participation aforesaid, I have done nothing whatsoever to interfere in the investigation and or to jeopardize the proper functioning of the criminal justice system as it relates to the investigation into the Club Loan. It is my sincere intention to deal with these allegations levelled against me should a trial proceed against me, and in this context, I have no cause to attempt to evade justice. In fact, my past conduct spanning the period 2018 to present has been to eagerly demonstrate my innocence. 10.3. On 25 May 2022, I was alerted to the fact that Lieutenant Colonel Kutsia had contacted my family members as he wished to make contact with me. I contacted him telephonically, whereafter he informed me of the investigation and he had procured a warrant for my arrest. I informed him that I would comply with his request and that I would surrender myself to him. It was arranged with him that I report to the Brackendowns police station near Alberton on 27 May 2022 at 0700 hours. I complied with this arrangement and I was taken into custody. 11, under the heading Previous Convictions. My legal representatives have explained the provisions of Section 6011 capital B of the CPA to me. I have no previous convictions and I have not been released on bail on any other charges. 12. The heading Add Section 64 small a read with Section 60 brackets 5 of the CPA. 12.1. I'm not certain of which witnesses the state may want to call at a future trial in support of the allegations levelled against me. I undertake not to make contact or communicate with any of the state witnesses and request that their identities be disclosed to me so as to enable me to purposefully not make contact with them. 2. I have no disposition to commit any offence. 3. Accordingly, I submit that there is no likelihood that if I am released on bail, I will endanger the safety of the public or any particular person and will commit a Schedule 1 offence. Under the heading Add Section 64 small b read with Section 60 bracket 6 of the CPA. 13.1. My occupational, emotional and family ties are within the Republic of South Africa. I have valuable movable and immovable property in the Republic of South Africa. I have no desire or intention to leave that behind to endeavour to escape a trial herein. Subsequent to the commencement of the investigation into the club loan, I have travelled extensively throughout the Republic of South Africa and abroad. Despite the fact that I was made aware of the allegation that has been levelled against me, I have made no attempts to flee from the Republic of South Africa. Sub 2. I respectfully submit that the facts set out above support my submission that I do not constitute a flight risk. 3. Should I be so ordered, I will not leave the Republic of South Africa. However, if I am permitted to leave the Republic of South Africa, I will do so in compliance with conditions imposed by this Honourable Court. 4. I have a valid South African passport and I am prepared to surrender my passport to the investigating officer if necessary. I undertake not to apply for travel documents pending the conclusion of my trial. 5. Although I accept that the charge against me is serious, I reiterate that there is no need for me to attempt to evade justice. 6. My livelihood is dependent upon me being in the Republic of South Africa and I cannot afford to become a fugitive of justice. 7. I will submit myself to any reasonable bail conditions which may be imposed by this Honourable Court. 8. I respectfully submit that there is no likelihood that I, if released on bail, will attempt to evade my trial. 14. Under the heading add section 60 brackets 4 bracket small c, read with section 60 bracket 7 of the CPA. 14.1. I am given to understand that the evidential material which the state relies upon is in the possession of the investigating officer and that it is safely secured. I am furthermore not aware of the existence of any other exhibits or material relevant to the state's case which can be concealed, and I most certainly will not conceal or destroy any evidential material. 15. Add section 60 brackets 4 bracket small d, read with section 60 brackets 8 of the CPA. I respectfully submit that there is no likelihood that I, if released on bail, will undermine and or jeopardize the objectives of the proper functioning of the criminal justice system, including the bail system. 16. Add section 60 brackets 4 brackets small e, read with section 60 brackets 8 capital A of the CPA. I respectfully submit that, should I be released on bail, my release will not induce a sense of shock or outrage in the community and will not disturb the public order or undermine the public peace or security. I further submit that my safety will not be jeopardized by my release on bail. 17. Add section 60 brackets 9 of the CPA. I respectfully submit that the interests of justice do not require my continued incarceration. Furthermore, I respectfully submit that I have discharged the burden which rests upon me to demonstrate that the interests of justice permit my release on bail. 18. Add section 60 brackets 11 brackets small b of the CPA. 18.1. I stand to be severely prejudiced by my continued incarceration, which fact should weigh heavily in my favour as I do not pose a risk to the state should I be released on bail. 2. I respectfully submit that the interests of justice, considerations of prejudice and the balancing of respective interests favour my release on bail on such conditions as this Honourable Court may impose. Your Worship, the affidavit together with the two relevant annexures have been duly commissioned. I respectfully request that it be received as evidence. My client will no doubt confirm the correctness thereof.
Thank you so much.
As your worship pleases. That being the application on behalf of my client.
Mr. Gama, you may rise. Do you confirm the contents of the affidavit which was read and handed in by your counsel?
Yes, my Lord, I confirm the contents of the affidavit.
Thank you. Accepted and marked Exhibit C.
As the court pleases.
Mr. Botha?
Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning.
Your Worship, in a similar fashion, I also have in my possession an affidavit prepared on behalf of the accused.
Yes.
I beg leave to hand up the original to this Honourable Court, and I beg leave to read it into the record.
You may do so.
Thank you. In the matter between the State and Gary Jason Peter, affidavit in support of application for bail. I, the undersigned, Gary Jason Peter, do hereby make oath and say that I'm an adult male residing at 5 Keltis Way, Aspen Hills Nature Estate, Malbarton, Johannesburg, Gauteng. I'm advised that I should place sufficient evidence before this Honourable Court to establish the onus, if any, that I may carry in law to be granted bail. I have elected to depose to this affidavit in order to discharge the onus. The facts deposed to herein fall within my personal knowledge, unless the contrary appears from the context, and are both true and correct. I was informed by the investigating officer that I will be charged with fraud. I am not familiar with the further details thereof. I have been advised that this bail application falls under the ambit of Schedule 5 offence, which means that I have to prove that it is in the interest of justice to permit my release in terms of Section 60 sub 11 sub small b of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977 as amended the Act. 7. My general background. I'm the applicant, a major male with identity number 79051351198082. I'm currently employed as a business consultant. I'm a South African citizen by birth. I have 2 children, a girl aged 13 and a boy aged 11 from a previous marriage. My wife is a sales director of a mobile solutions business. However, she is not responsible for the maintenance of my minor children. My ex-wife's current employment status is unknown to me, and I confirm that as far as I'm aware, I'm basically the sole financial provider of my minor children. I earn a net salary of 70,000 Rand per month, which is linked to the amount of work that my employer has from time to time. A big chunk of my salary goes towards the maintenance, school fees, and the medical aid that totals approximately 48,000 Rand per month. Then paragraph 8, section 60, 4A read with section 65A to H. I will not endanger the safety of the public or any particular person, and I will not commit a Schedule 1 offence. In this regard, it should be noted that 8.1.1, I've not made any threat of violence to any person, either in connection with the case against me or in any other circumstances. I do not harbour any resentment against any person, either in connection with the case against me or otherwise. I have no disposition to violence whatsoever, either as is evident from my past conduct or otherwise. I have no pending charges against me, nor do I have any previous criminal convictions against my name. Paragraph 9, section 64B, read to section 66A to I. I will not evade my trial. I'm permanently resident in Malbarton, Johannesburg, and I have no inclination of moving to another town in South Africa or abroad. I have distant family outside the borders of South Africa who resides in Talia, in Madeira, and the United Kingdom. I have 2 valid passports, one South African and one of Portugal. I will hand over both my passports to the investigating officer pending the finalization of this matter. Your Worship, in the meantime, it's my instructions that both these passports were handed over to the investigating officer this morning.
Thank you.
I'm advised that I can approach this honourable court in future to relax my bail conditions and to order that my passports be handed back to me for the purpose of emergency overseas travels. I have no inclination to start a new life abroad and leave behind my wife, mother and children whom I love dearly. It will be morally and otherwise impossible for me to breach the trust placed in me by my family by not facing my trial and living the life of a fugitive from justice and from my family for the rest of my life. I solemnly intend to adhere to my bail conditions and to attend my trial. I've been cooperating with the Zondo Commission, where I testified, and with the investigating officer since he made contact with me. Despite the foregoing, I've not attempted to evade the trial and to flee the Republic of South Africa. I solemnly intend to adhere to my bail conditions and to attend my trial. I understand the severity of the charges against me and the severity of the possible sentences which might flow from a conviction. I've not seen the content of the docket, and I intend to plead not guilty, and I will not contact the witnesses and undertake to do so. As stated during the above, I do not know the identity of the state witnesses, and I fear that I might unknowingly make contact with possible state witnesses due to my daily business operations as a business consultant. If the investigating officer is amenable to supply me with a list of specific persons that I'm not allowed to make contact with, it will nullify the possibility of me unknowingly making contact with a state witness. I do not have access to evidentiary material that could be concealed or destroyed. 11. Section 64D, read with Section 68A to D. There is no likelihood that my release on bail will undermine or jeopardize the objectives of the proper functioning of the criminal justice system, including the bail system. I've not knowingly supplied any false information at the time of my arrest or during these bail proceedings. I'm not in custody on another charge, and I'm not on parole. As alluded to here in Supra, I've no previous convictions, and there are no other pending charges against me that I'm aware of. Then next heading, Section 64E, read with Section 68, capital A. There are no facts to support any inference or of a reasonable fear or likelihood of public disorder should I be released on bail. My personal safety is not in jeopardy. In similar vein, there are no facts indicating that the sense of peace and security amongst the members of the public will be undermined or jeopardized by my release on bail. I hold no threat to anyone's peace or security, and neither does the charge against me imply a threat to the peace or security of anyone. There is no reason to believe that my release on bail will undermine or jeopardize the public confidence in the criminal justice system. I respectfully submit that the circumstances of this case are not such as to pose a threat of any nature to the community, any individual, or to the criminal justice system. Then Section 64, read to Section 69A to G. I'm advised that it is unlikely that the trial will be finalized in the near future. It appears that it will take the state a substantial period to finalize the case against me. I will have no part in delaying the trial, and I do not suggest that anyone on the state side will have any part in causing a delay. I'm advised that it is simply inherent in the nature of the charge against me that the lengthy delay is to be expected until the trial is finalized. Although my wife is employed, she is not the guardian of my 2 minor children, and I contribute materially to their maintenance. My continued detention and the loss of income that goes with it will limit my ability to pay for legal representation and to care for my family. I respectfully pray that this court orders my release subject to any bail condition that this honourable court might impose. Signed and sworn to at Johannesburg on the 26th of May 2022, signed by Mr. Gary Jason Peter. If your worship is satisfied, I beg leave that the original affidavit handed up be accepted as an exhibit.
Thank you. Mr. Peter, do you confirm the contents of the affidavit as read and handed in by your counsel?
I confirm that, Your Worship.
Thank you. It's accepted and marked Exhibit D. You may get seated. Mr. Witz?
Yes, thank you. Morning, Your Worship.
Good
Your Worship, I
morning.
confirm my appearance on behalf of Mr. Daniel Benjamin Roy. I'm instructed by Meyer's attorneys. I have similarly prepared an affidavit. I'd like to hand up the original. It's been duly commissioned at the Bracken Downs Police Station. I've also handed one to my learned friend this morning for him to peruse, and with the permission of the court, once you have accepted it, I will then read it into the record.
Thank you. You may read
Reads
that
as
into
follows, Your
record.
Worship. I, the undersigned Daniel Benjamin Roy, do hereby make oath and say that the contents hereof are within my own personal knowledge and belief, save where stated otherwise, or appear different from the context thereof. I am the applicant to the above-mentioned matter. I'm an adult male South African, aged 49 years, with my personal particulars and backgrounds as reflected hereunder. I'm awaiting a bail application to be brought on the 27th of May 2022. I've been advised by my legal representatives that it is now considered law and practice that in the bringing of bail applications, either the defence or the state from time to time do not present viva voce evidence, but rely on the production of affidavits and annexures. My legal representatives have further advised me that it is common practice in the event that I do present viva voce evidence, almost without exception, this will lead to me being cross-examined on the merits of the matter, which I submit is premature at this stage for reasons as will canvass hereunder. Neither I nor my legal representatives have been placed in possession of the charge sheet or the contents and statements of the criminal dockets as to inform me what the allegations against me comprise. I've therefore been advised to depose to this affidavit, as I have the right to remain silent in terms of the provisions the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa Act 108 of 1996, the Constitution. My details are: my South African identification number is 7305-255-150084. My date of birth is 25th of May 1973. I am a South African / United Kingdom citizen. I am in possession of a South African passport and United Kingdom passport. I'd just like to pause there. By agreement and by arrangement this morning, when my client handed himself over to be arrested at Brackendowns, both the passports were handed in my presence to the investigating officer and his assistants who are assisting him, so they're now in possession of the South African police.
Thank you.
My personal circumstances and background: I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. I reside at 2 Methley Place, Benmore Gardens, where I've resided for the last 10 years. I own the property, which is valued at approximately 5 million rand. The property is bonded with Standard Bank, and I own an amount of approximately 1.3 million on the property. I went to Hertzler Primary and High School in Cape Town. After matriculating, I commenced my studies in the diploma in marketing and thereafter an MBA, and I further completed all my financial management and trading examinations with the Financial Services Board as well as the JSE, which is Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I am married with an anti-nuptial contract with the accrual system. We have 2 children respectively, a son aged 16 and a daughter aged 19. We are an extremely close knit family, and my wife and I are very attached to our children. I'm a financial business specialist and businessman. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm currently working from home. Since I completed my tertiary education, I've always been in fixed employment. I'm earning approximately 150,000 Rand gross per month. I also have saving and investments for myself and my family. My wife and I own 3 motor vehicles valued at approximately 580,000 Rand. We own immovable property valued at approximately 5 million, and there's a bond of approximately 1.3 million. I'm also the beneficiary of a family trust of my late parents of a property in Cape Town. That's between him and his brother, and the value of that is approximately 2 million, of which he'd be entitled to half. I have relatives living in South Africa, or my mother and father-in-law, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and both my parents are deceased. I have one brother who resides in the United Kingdom, and my daughter is presently studying in Israel. I do have funds available for bail, which my wife will arrange should this become necessary. My legal representatives have been in contact with both the investigating officer as well as the prosecution in this matter. I submit that should bail be denied for me, I'll continue to be incarcerated until the conclusion of this matter, which I submit will be prejudicial as detailed hereunder. I'm advised by my legal representatives that in the circumstances I'm presumed innocent, as enshrined in section 35(3)(h) of the Constitution Act 108 of 1996. We then set out for your worship in the court the judicial criteria, which we know that you will take into account. I've been advised that the Honourable Presiding Officer will balance the interests of the administration of justice against my constitutional rights to be released on bail and my right to privacy and freedom. I'm setting out further reasons why I am a person who, in terms of the Constitution Act 108 of 1996, should enjoy freedom of movement, of occupation, of association, pending any trial that may follow in this court or any other criminal court in the Republic of South Africa. If I remain in custody until my matter is trialed, such detention will have a punitive and devastating effect on my life, even if I'm acquitted. Such detention will in all probability result in a substantial loss of my self-respect in the community, severe financial prejudice in my occupation, and personal hardship to myself and my family. Severe restrictions on me to prepare for my forthcoming trial. I'll need to research, prepare for trial study documentation. If I'm unable to do this with my legal representatives, I'll be severely prejudiced in my preparation for trial. I do not have any previous convictions. I do not have any pending criminal cases against me of which I'm aware. And just to place on record, Your Worship, even though it's not in the affidavit, I did explain the position of the Criminal Procedure Act and what the position means under oath, that in regards to the affidavit, to make this declaration and confirm this affidavit in regards to previous convictions, if any, and also any pending criminal cases, so my client is aware of it.
Thank you.
The arrest and factual background. The date of my arrest was the 27th of May 2022. I understand now we've been charged with fraud together with the other accused, frauds and money laundering, as we just now heard. My intended plea is not guilty. His defense to the charges is that he denies the allegations against me. Once he's been placed in possession of the disclosure statements and the indictment, he'll be in a position to deal with his defense. The Criminal Procedure Act, number 51 of 1977, it's a Schedule 5 offence. I'm advised that Section 61B of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977 as amended provides that where I'm charged with an offence referred to in Schedule 5, the court should order that I be detained in custody unless I produce evidence that satisfies the court that the interests of justice permit for my release. The schedule under which the matter falls, it's a Schedule 5. We then deal with the considerations in terms of Section 60, subsection 4, A to E of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977 as amended. Section 64, brackets little a. Danger to the safety of the public or any particular person or the public interest or commit a Schedule 1 offence. I submit that I'm neither a danger to the public nor to any particular person, nor will I commit any offence if released on bail. I'm advised that should I commit an offence while on bail, I run the risk of having bail revoked in this matter should it indeed be granted. Section 64B. Where there's a likelihood that the accused, if he released on bail, will attempt to evade his trial, I will stand my trial and have no inclination whatsoever to avoid my trial. I submit the fact that my legal representatives, as well as myself, have been in contact with the entities of the state is indicative that I have no intention to abscond. During the course of the investigation of this matter, I have travelled abroad, it will be evident from the content of my passport. In the course of my employment, if I'm compelled to travel abroad, I return home after each trip and will continue to do so. Interference with witnesses or evidentiary materials, Section 64C. I will not interfere with witnesses and I have no access to evidentiary material. If I'm provided with a list of witnesses by the state, I confirm that I will not make contact with them in relation to this matter. Section 64D, where there's a likelihood that if the accused were released on bail, will undermine or jeopardise the objectives of the proper functioning of the criminal justice system, including the bail system. I submit that my release on bail will neither undermine nor jeopardise the proper functioning of the criminal justice system. Exceptional circumstances, either presence or absence, which may lead to undermining public order or peace, not applicable in this matter. Other relevant factors to be considered by the above honourable court. I'm a South African citizen with strong emotional ties in the Republic of South Africa. I've given my full cooperation to the arresting officers and all people involved. I also own fixed property. My wife and my in-laws and my minor son are all here in the Republic of South Africa. My family, my emotional and my employment are all in the Republic of South Africa. In considering the questions, the above honourable court shall decide the matter, weighing the interests of justice against the right of the applicant to my personal freedom, and in particular the prejudice that I'm likely to suffer if I were to be detained in custody, taking into account where applicable the following factors. The probable period of detention until the disposal or conclusion of the trial if I'm not released on bail, we've estimated approximately 1 to 2 years, and that's based on the roles of the court and the present court systems. The reason for any delay in the conclusion of the trial and any fault on my part with regard to the delay, I have not caused and I will not cause any delay. Any financial loss which I may suffer owing to my detention, I together with my family will suffer substantial loss as I'll not be able to earn an income. Any impediment to the preparation of my defence or any delay in obtaining legal representation which may be brought about by my continued detention. The distances involved, as well as the lack of times and consultation facilities and times at the Department of Corrective Services. The state of my health, I suffer from high blood pressure, which I receive medication, and I'm still suffering the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Any other factors which in the opinion of the above honourable court should be taken into account. I'm a citizen of the Republic of South Africa who respects the Constitution. I've been married for approximately 23 years. I have 2 children born of our marriage. I've been in permanent fixed employment since I completed my tertiary education, and I own together with my wife the property where I reside. I've also given my full cooperation to the state and the investigating officer. Conditions, any conditions which this honourable court deems fit to impose, I'll comply with. I respectfully submit that the interests of justice do not require my continued detention. A substantial burden will be cast upon myself and my family if I were to be further detained, and I submit that the interests of justice must bear a wider meaning so as to include my fundamental right to my personal freedom and my liberty. I respectfully submit that by denying me my personal freedom, I'll be severely prejudiced. In the premises afforded, I respectfully request this honourable court to release me on bail, subject to any reasonable bail conditions that this honourable court may impose, and I respectfully submit it will indeed be in the interest of justice that I be so released. This was signed and affidavitted in my presence at the Bracken Downs Police Station this morning on the 27th of May 2022. And then just 2 aspects just to bring to your worship's attention with respect.
Yes.
Your Worship, in regards, if the court is inclined to grant bail, I have discussed this with my learned friend. We've managed to raise an amount of 50,000 rand. It seems to me that there's a problem at the moment that the banks are not carrying cash. So the maximum that you can get, even if you order, they're not giving people cash anymore. It's become a problem. So when we were informed by the investigating officer that we have to appear at Brackendowns to hand over to be arrested, we gave them our full cooperation and assistance. We've handed over the passports, they're in their possession, and we've managed to raise that amount for bail. And as I understand, my learned friend would have no objection if bail is granted. With respect, Your Worship, if my client, who appears before you today, confirms the contents of this affidavit, that will then be the case for the applicant, and I would respectfully submit that bail should be granted. And the only other condition would obviously be that the passports remain in the possession of the investigating officer, and we'll deal with that in the future and at a later stage, depending upon business or family interests. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Roy, do you confirm the contents of this affidavit, which was read by your counsel in support of your bail application? Thank you. You may get seated. This will be accepted and marked Exhibit E.
As the court pleases. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Vitti?
May it please you, Your Worship, I beg leave to remove my mask.
You are welcome.
Initial W, surname Vitti, on behalf of accused number 7, Your Worship. Your Worship, my client has deposed to an affidavit for bail, which I've handed a copy through to my learned friend. I beg leave to hand up the original to the Honorable Court.
You may do so. Thank you. Proceed to read the affidavit.
Indebted to Your Worship. Your Worship, in the matter between Petolo Ramasibudi versus the state, I, the undersigned Petolo Ramasibudi, do hereby make oath and state that I am an adult male currently residing at number 931 Livingston Fall, Waterfall Country Estate, Waterfall, 1685. I attach here to marked A copy of the municipal account which is in my name, and B, a copy of the invoice from the estate body corporate which evidences the same. I am the co-accused in this matter, and this affidavit is made in support of my release on bail, which I submit will be in the interest of justice for the reasons as set out below. The facts herein contained are within my own personal knowledge and are to the best of my belief both true and correct, save as otherwise indicated. Where I rely on legal submissions, I do so on the advice of my legal representatives, whose advice I accept to be both true and correct. I depose to this affidavit in support of my application for bail, post me handing myself over to the investigating officers at the Brackendowns police station on the morning of the 27th of May 2022. I have been advised that for purposes of this application, that I am not required to deal with the merits of the matter. I accordingly exercise my rights in that regard. I will therefore deal with the affidavit under the subheadings listed below. Personal details. My name is, as stated above, is Pachulo Ramasubudi. I am a 53-year-old male currently residing at the aforesaid address. I was born on the 2nd of September 1968. I am a South African citizen. I was born and grew up in the Limpopo province. I have a South African identity document with identity number 680902549183. I attach here to marked C a copy of my identity document which evidences the same. I consider Gauteng and Limpopo as my permanent places of residence. I am currently unemployed and have been so unemployed since or about November 2018. Travel documents. I am in possession of a valid South African passport, and I will relinquish same should the court so order. Your Worship, my instructions are that my client has handed these over upon handing himself in this morning at the
Thank you.
station. I have no further travel documents which will authorize my lawful departure outside of the Republic of South Africa. Arrest and events leading up thereto. On or about the 25th of May 2022, I received a call from one Lieutenant Colonel Kutsia, in brackets the Colonel, who advised me that he had a warrant for my arrest in respect of a matter which is under investigation, and that he wanted my residential address so as to see me in person and to verify that I am indeed resident at the address as so provided. I then provided the Colonel the address where I am resident, and he later in the day came to my residence to confirm the same and advised me that I must hand myself over to the Brackendowns police station on the morning of the 27th of May 2022 in order to be formally charged and taken to court for these bail proceedings. Post meeting with the Colonel, I contacted my attorneys of record and instructed them to prepare this bail affidavit on my behalf after having consulted with him. History of previous behavior. I have no previous convictions or pending criminal cases against me. I have been informed that failure to disclose the above mentioned aspects constitutes an offense, and I am aware of the consequences thereof. I submit that I will comply with any and all bail conditions should the Honourable Court wish to invoke any such bail conditions upon my release on bail. Submissions regarding factors to be considered when deciding whether bail should be granted. I have been informed that I must present evidence satisfying the Honourable Court that on a balance of probabilities, the interest of justice permit my release on bail. I respectfully submit that the information contained in this statement constitutes sufficient evidence to satisfy this requirement. Considerations in terms of Section 60, Section 64A, danger to public or individual safety. I respectfully submit that I do not pose a threat to the safety of the public or any particular person, nor do I have the propensity to commit violence. I harbor no resentment towards any person and have not threatened any person in this matter. There is no violence implicit in the charge brought against me, and I submit that my release will pose no threat to society. Section 60 Subform B, likelihood of evasion of trial. I will not attempt to evade my trial. I submit that I am a stable and contributing member of society and that I am not a flight risk. In fact, my behavior in surrendering myself to the state evidences my willingness not to act against justice. All of my assets are situated in the jurisdiction of South Africa. I do not possess any assets outside South Africa. I, however, respectfully submit that I remain presumed innocent, and I am confident that I will be found not guilty on the charges. I will therefore attend my trial. I will abide by any bail conditions that the court should deem fit to impose on me. Section 60 Sub 4 Sub C, interference with witnesses or evidence. I will not attempt to influence or intimidate the state witnesses or conceal or destroy evidence. I amplify the fact that I do not even know at this point who the witnesses are. I would further comply with any condition that I may not contact any specific witness, and such condition could be easily enforced by the state should I contravene it in any way. I believe that the investigation should be complete, and I would not interfere in the investigation in any way. I do not have access to the state's evidentiary material and cannot influence the outcome of the trial in this regard. Section 64D, jeopardy of functioning of criminal justice system on bail. I submit that my release on bail will not undermine or jeopardize the objectives of the proper functioning of the justice system. I have not supplied any false information in this matter, and there is no indication in my past conduct to show that I will not comply with any of the bail conditions. Section 64E, exceptional circumstances. I submit that there are no exceptional circumstances present to indicate that my release will disturb the public order or undermine the public peace or security. I am a self-sufficient and well-contributing member in society. Further, and in order to prepare for my trial, I need to consult with my counsel. This will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, in the conditions that prevail in prison and even the court cells. I will be severely prejudiced in preparation for my trial should bail be refused. My livelihood will also be severely prejudiced should bail be refused. If I remain in custody until the case is tried, such detention will have a punitive and devastating effect on my life, even if I am eventually acquitted. I am 53 years of age and suffer from a number of chronic conditions. The state of the prisons in South Africa is deplorable, and it will not be in the interest of justice to detain me until my trial. I therefore humbly submit that it is in the interest of justice that I am released from custody, and request the Honourable Court to fix bail in an amount and with any appropriate conditions that the court should deem fit. I confirm that I am in a position to provide bail in the amount of 25,000 rand. In the circumstances, I respectfully submit that my release on bail will be in the interest of justice and my safety. Wherefore, I throw myself at the mercy of the Honourable Court and pray that the court make a decision authorizing my release on bail. I submit in closing that in the event of the above Honourable Court making a decision that I am eligible for bail, that my legal representatives have been instructed with the requisite information to determine the quantum of such bail which has been indicated above. I humbly submit that the balance of convenience favors my release on bail and humbly request that I be released from custody on bail.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsey, you may rise. Do you confirm the contents of the affidavit which was read and handed in by your attorney in support of a bail application? I didn't hear you.
Yes, my lord, I confirm the contents of that.
Thank you. The affidavit is accepted and marked Exhibit F. Is this case for the applicants?
That's the case for the applicants. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I confirm on behalf of Mr. Rowan, who appears before you as number 6 today on my client, that is the case for the applicant.
Ms.
For
Killian?
number 6.
For case number 3, confirm that's the application, my lord, your worship.
Mr.
Same
Brotham,
for case number 5, Your Worship.
And for case
Mr.
number
Witty, and Mr. Aldwich.
I have confirmed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. State Counsel.
As a court business, Your Worship, the state is not going to present any evidence.
Yes.
We are not opposed to choosing the release of bail. Further confirm that I am in possession or I was provided exhibits relating to F
Yes.
of the personal circumstances of the accused. And the state has further verified the information there in connection with the previous convictions, properties that we choose having, as well as the income requirements. Just in short, Your Worship, I think this was very familiar to the affidavit by all my colleagues in respect of what we are charged with. Accused number 4, 5, and 7 were employed by Transnet SOC in various capacities, and I choose number 3 and 6. They were directors of entities that were suppliers to Transnet. Now, they have been charged for PFMA, fraud, corruption, and money laundering. They have the role that they played in facilitating and approving a payment of 93.4 million. I choose number 6 and its entity. Then that money was laundered down to choose number 1, was already refused to go, and other entities that we will later on join into charge sheet to appear both with the choose before the court. I submit, as my colleagues have already done for this court, that the accused will attend the trial. The court should grant the bail as before, and we further arrange that the matter be postponed until the 13th of July, so that the state can finalize or bring the other accused that are still outstanding in the matter before court can start preparing for the trial. The court.
On your feet. Mr. Kamel. The accused number 7, do you agree with the quantum, bail quantum? Or applicant 7?
I will concede, Your Worship, it's something that we took it out when we informed the defense, I think on Wednesday, about his circumstances.
Yeah, just speak up a bit, I can't. Yeah.
We were very aware of the fact that the accused is having some financial problems, as well as the other accused.
Yes.
In obtaining the amount that we proposed. In fact, what we were told, it was that he was going to apply for legal aid to explain these circumstances that he cannot pay the proposed bail that the state was proposing. Why I am acceding is simply because bail is not about the high amount that he needs to pay. It's more about, can we secure him for the trial purposes? Now, if the accused is prepared to pay that amount, the state will not get it.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. In view of the fact that bail, this bail application is not opposed, do you still wish to address this court? Is there a need for doing so? Ms. Killian?
May it please the court. Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, with the concession of my learned friend, I think most of the legal argument is not necessary to be rehearsed. I wish to submit that there is no likelihood that any of the factors in 60 sub 4 is present or proved in this matter against accused number 3. He has a fixed address for a long period of time, since 94 he's employed. Now, the amount that was suggested of 250,000 rand was secured and is in the position to pay same. We've also suggested that he reports every Monday between 8 and 8. That will then be 800 in the morning and 2000 in the evening at Morningside Police Station, if that is so required. Passport's already been surrendered. Thank you.
Mr. Aldridge?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, just very briefly, it was pretty difficult for me to hear what it is that my learned friend for the state submitted in relation to what he considers with regards to my client's application. It's a matter of record that paragraph 9 of his affidavit makes it very clear that he's in a position to post bail in the amount of 50,000 rand. There is, of course, no opposition to this by my learned friend. I understand his submission to be that it's a concession and an acceptance of that amount. The position, and all I wish to add to that, Your Worship, is of course this: a consideration of all the factors encapsulated in this application, and particularly his conduct, since he was made aware of these allegations. read together with all the factors enumerated in section 60, subsection 4 to subsection 9 of the Criminal Procedure Act, makes it apparent that he's not a person who's a flight risk. In fact, all of his family, occupational, emotional ties are vested in South Africa, and certainly there is no indication whatsoever. Converse is explained if there is the allegation that there's a potential for an interference with the investigation. None of those aspects raised in the application in support of his application are dealt with, least of which not even opposed or refuted by the state. And so those circumstances, I would submit that the amount of 50,000 rand is appropriate without any conditions to report to a police station.
Thank you.
Those are my submissions on behalf of my client. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr. Botha?
May I please support? Your Worship, first and foremost, I submit that the proper case has been made out in support of...
I've already alluded to the fact that bail is not opposed, so you're
As
not
the-
going to to
As
deal
the
with
court
that.
pleases. Your Worship's just the amount. Evident from the affidavit, Your Worship would have noted that accused number 5 earns 70,000 rand a month, whereof almost 2/3 goes to the maintenance of his minor children. Now, the accused has secured 50,000 rand to post as bail, and I submit that's the amount that he can afford, and that will be proper under the circumstances, as the court pleases.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Woods?
you, Worship. As I indicated in my address to the court, we have raised an amount of 50,000 rand, and I did discuss it with my learned friend telephonically yesterday, told him the problem with the banks, and that is what we could raise. And I think that in the circumstances and by his conduct, that a case has been made other than 50,000 rand, and the only condition that his passports remain with the investigating officer, which has already been handed over. There's no reporting conditions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May it please you, Your Worship.
Yes, Mr.
By
Botha?
virtue of the fact that my learned friend acting on behalf of the state has indicated that the state is not opposing bail, safe to state that my client has demonstrated that it's in the interest of justice to release him on bail. I have nothing further than that to say.
Thank you.
Your Worship, just and obviously, my understanding is that the state has agreed to the amount which my client has tendered. So I do not intend to address you any further in respect of that amount. Indebted, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Wakumela?
Your Worship, I would just want to address the court in respect of bail condition.
Yes.
The amount itself. Earlier on, when I started the day, I started by amending the bail conditions of choose number 1.
Yes.
I of not reporting, but the state keeps the passport. I would ask the court to do the same with regard to all the issues of court. You don't need to report at all, as long as the state is in possession of the passport. If any of them wish to travel overseas, then they have to approach the state when they come before the court and make an amendment to the bail condition. That's all.
Thank you. You may rise, applicants. Bail is granted. In respect of accused or applicant number 3, that's Mr. Wood. The bail quantum is an amount of 250,000 rand, which is payable at the office of the clerk of the court. There are certain conditions you have to comply with. On each and every occasion that you are warned to appear in court, you should do so. I have been informed that you have already handed in your travel documents to the investigating officer. You are not going to report at the police station at any time unless the state changes its mind and advances reasons as to why you should report at the police station. Accused number 2, bail is fixed at a cash deposit of 50,000 rand. The only condition is that your travel documents should remain in the custody of the investigating officer. Accused number 3 or applicant number 4, bail is fixed at a cash deposit of 50,000 rand, subject to the fact that your passport should remain with the investigating officer. Number 6, that is accused number 6. Bail is fixed at a cash deposit of 50,000 rand on same conditions that your bail, your passports remain with the investigating officer. Last, that is accused applicant number 7. Applicant number 6, but accused number 7. Your bail is fixed at a cash deposit of 25,000 rand, and your travel documents are to remain with the investigating officer. Regarding to accused number 3 to 7, whenever it's essential that you should travel, you should approach the investigating officer, who will liaise with the state counsel, and thereafter you'll be brought to court, and the court will determine as to the conditions of travel. Do you understand that? You don't just go to the investigating officer and demand your passport, show him the travel arrangements or your tickets and all these things. The court should still authorize the travel. Do you understand that? If you succeed in paying bail, you'll come back to this court on the 13th day of July 2022. Matter is so postponed.
Thank you, Worship. As the court pleases.
Worship, might we then be excused?
You will adjourn with the court. This is the last matter.
Thank you.
So you all sit down. Please have a safe weekend. Court adjourns.
Thank you, sir.